Hey everybody, we're back again. It's Mark Zweig and Eric Howerton, and we're here with another episode of
Big Talk About Small Business. It's business.
Is it business?
It's business.
Okay, business. Okay. Hey, anyway, it's great to be here with you all today, and we've got some very special guests with us. We have the lovely and talented wives of Eric and myself, Tara Howerton and Sonya Zweig, with us.
Welcome.
So,
Welcome to the show. We're so glad that you are here.
Thank you.
This is great.
Yes.
Yeah. Y'all excited about this?
Very.
Why are we talking so softly?
Yeah.
I'm not sure anybody's going to be able to hear us.
The mics are on. You know, we're always quiet out front.
Is that it?
Yeah.
But what,
yeah.
But
what
not
about at home? Are y'all?
No.
no.
It's
Well,
very, very uncomfortable.
what are you talking about? This is a beautiful studio. We have nice seating.
Yeah.
We have good lighting. Yeah.
Tara and I have to watch our mouths, so we have to think before we respond. I mean, because the general public, if they heard some of this stuff. And the thing is, these guys just leave themselves wide open sometime, and you just got to go in for the kill. It's right there.
Well,
It's like this would not take very long.
no. Hey, the reason we have these ladies with us today, everybody, is we thought it might be interesting to bring in the spouses of entrepreneurs, because that's a common situation. Entrepreneurs are married, whether they're men, women, or theys.
Yep.
They're oftentimes we have partners, and they play a major part in our lives and even how we run our businesses.
Absolutely.
So I thought it would be fun. Actually, I can't say I did. Eric suggested it.
Did I?
Yeah.
Good idea, wasn't it?
It was a good idea. You come up with
Thanks,
some good
man.
ones.
Appreciate that.
It's one of the reasons I like working with you.
That's why I'm your co-host.
Yeah, exactly. So, ladies, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourselves? Tara, why don't you start out? Just tell us a little bit about yourself and what your background is.
So I'm originally from Louisiana. I'm military for about 10, 13 years, I guess, and then all medical since then. So work in the hospital in the medical setting. And so my world and Eric's world are drastically different. And so it's been interesting to
Hell of a ride, hadn't it been, baby?
just to
You're
just
welcome.
to kind of see things in comparison and compare our two worlds.
What do you do now? You're a nurse practitioner.
Yeah, nurse practitioner. And so I work at Mercy and I work for Highlands Oncology. Yeah.
Doing real stuff. Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
tough.
Dealing with lives. It's important work.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so it's, I think that has been a really interesting dynamic in our relationship from being an entrepreneur. And, and I've had a job that is just very, there's job security till the end of time. And so, consistent paycheck, consistent work, all of that. And so that's kind of gone a long ways, earlier in our marriage, as far as for how I think how we got through some of the initial struggles of stuff. And some of the stuff, I will tell him now, I was probably one of his least biggest fans.
Really? Now, I remember a certain birthday party or something for Eric where he was playing music. You seemed like you enjoyed that.
I love him, but
I think I know what she's saying. She comes from a very structured background, and there's nothing structured about entrepreneurship.
no,
That's,
no.
yeah.
100%.
It wasn't an attack on me as a man.
No, but it was his
No, well, I
choice
was
of
just
profession.
being as much of a fan of your music as, that says something.
Actually, I was kind of shocked at that birthday party. You
Set up a little stage in the backyard there.
I was kind of shocked.
You hit it.
He
was
since
pretty cool.
declined, though. Don't worry. It's gone downhill since. It really has.
So no, you were saying you weren't a big fan. I mean, what do you mean by that?
Yeah, just the the ups and downs of it, and especially the downs. I mean,
Right.
my mindset was like, okay, why are you doing this? And there was this vision that he had that I'm not a dreamer. I am very practical, and and I have said to him multiple times, like, listen, if this doesn't work out in this amount of time, like, you need to give this up. Why don't you just go, work for Walmart or do something else? And acknowledging that, like, that's not. I hated to be that type of person, but it just, you see so much of the struggle and the struggle that it kind of
stress
to our family. Yeah. Stress on him. The times of going without a paycheck and paying your employees and just not seeing the return of all of that. It was like, why are you doing this?
Now you know why, though.
I do.
Right?
And I'm the first to say that, like, I will be the first to congratulate him, because people like me are what prevent people from doing that. But I couldn't do what he does.
Well, he made sacrifices for many years to get where he wanted to be, and eventually it paid off. But, a lot of people go like, oh, you're an overnight success. Yeah, overnight success after 30 years of work. Right.
Yeah.
That was one long night.
Yeah, exactly.
Lots of sacrifice and toil to get there. And I think I think what you're saying is not uncommon for a lot of spouses. They feel that way.
Yeah.
I grew up in a house where my dad, although I can't ever claim he was remotely an entrepreneur, he was self-employed, and it was very unstable, and I did not like that feeling of instability. Not that we ever missed it, they never had any debt. So we had every single thing we needed, but it was always like, well, hell, I don't know, It was constantly that feeling, and it's very unsettling.
It's always on a thread.
Yeah. But sometimes some of us just get used to living like that, and we don't even notice it.
Yeah.
That's true. I couldn't understand what she was talking about during those times.
And the flip side of that's in wiring.
Yeah.
Right? You might be, that stress was one thing, but you might be more stressed out and just sitting there in a desk job. And we're not capping on Walmart here, but in that type of rote, it's just...
Where there's structure all around. I have these boxes. I would go absolutely crazy. I would not.
Yeah.
No, I think we're both unemployable, really.
Yeah, I know. I've thought about that.
I'm unemployable too, is the problem.
Well, speaking of you, no. Tell us a little bit about yourself and your background, Sonya.
Why don't, I don't do very well with that.
Well,
I don't even do resumes. I mean, can you just do it?
That's awesome. So tell us about.
Can you tell them about me, please?
Your youth and some of the work experiences that you've had.
I've had a lot of work experience. One of my first jobs was shoveling manure in horse barns. My mother said, if you don't have a job by Friday, it was like summer after 10th grade or something. She said, if you don't have a job by Friday, I'm going to make you work in the barns. And I was thinking, she's so not going to make me work in that barn. Friday came.
There's your shovel. Here's the manure.
Yeah, 3 years.
Deal with.
It's good for you, though. Isn't it?
Yeah, it was thoroughbred horses. They're beautiful.
Teaches you some humility, doing honest work like that. So you shoveled shit for some years in the barn.
I tried to watch my mouth.
It's okay. Shit's not that bad of a word.
It's not that bad.
So what then?
I don't know. I worked for attorneys and retired FBI through college. Love the law.
You say retired FBI? What do you mean?
They were
retired.
She worked for a retired.
Oh, really? That's
FBI agents who were investigators.
Oh, cool. You love the law.
I love every little tiny technicality of it.
But you didn't go to law school. You went into a different field.
I actually
got into lending.
I did. Got into lending. Did that 17 years, and then I went to work for you.
And so, tell everybody what that was like.
That's called leading the witness. Objection.
Overruled.
Yeah. You were the one leading. You can't overrule. Tara can overrule you. You can't.
She actually said her name right. Just
Well,
Oh, sorry.
I say Tara.
But
know, that's
I
right?
was first told Tara, and then I keep hearing everybody say Tara.
I mean, it's fine. We're getting off track here.
Tara.
What is it? What is it? Is it
It's
Tara?
Tara. It's
Tara.
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 This is not.
Okay. all right.
So it's sort of in the middle. Tara. Okay. Tara.
It's
Tara.
back.
Okay. You say tomato, I say tomato.
Mm-hmm. Well,
So-
I went to work for you in a company that, it was supposed to be a bird's nest on the ground. And, we were all working in one room for a while.
Yep. That's when we first got the company back from the private equity firm that owned it and been taken over by the lender. So we were working with the lender to turn it around.
Right.
That was a fun time, wasn't it?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it was fun when we were playing practical jokes on people.
Yeah,
But,
that was
10 o'clock at night when I think I hear somebody in the building because I'm the only one there working, that wasn't all that much fun.
A little scary.
A little scary. Very dark.
So tell us more. So that was the turnaround situation. How did you like that?
Actually, it's a bit of a thrill. Extremely stressful, but a bit of a thrill. You get a real sense of accomplishment when it gets turned around.
True.
Now, you and your mom had your own business too, didn't you?
Mm-hmm.
So it's not like you're not used to self-employment. And
No,
your
my
family owned a
family
bunch of
had
businesses.
Bunch of businesses.
Yeah. So now your first husband wasn't like me.
No, he's more like Tara. He's a really good guy.
No.
He's a real, he and Mark call themselves husband-in-laws.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
No, he
But
is.
he's very structured, from Louisiana. And that's just where he's most comfortable.
Mm-hmm. The structure. Yeah. Very planned out.
Yes, can predict what's going to happen each day.
Mm-hmm.
That sounds like hell on earth to me.
Yeah.
I used to say if I could get up, go get my Diet Coke like before dawn, drive around for about 30 minutes with the stereo really loud, drinking my Diet Coke, you could throw anything at me that day. But if I didn't have, that was about the only structure I needed.
Mm-hmm.
But I had to start the day out like that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't do that anymore. Now I end it with Captain Morgan.
Mixed with a little Diet Coke.
Right.
Yeah.
Little mix.
Yeah. So what advice do you ladies have for other people who are married to people like Eric and myself?
Well, I think you need to tell your perspective because she and I are completely wired different.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not like it has to be one type of personality to go with it. So,
Yeah, I think, and I had told Eric this, and even to this day, even seeing everything come full circle and the success that he has and all that, in my world and in my wiring, if I knew that, okay, I could wake up and go to work every day and this is how much I would make and I'd have a comfortable living and I could provide for my children and this would be the ceiling of that, but I knew that that's what it would be every day for till the day I died, I'd be okay with that. I might never be, super rich or make millions, but that's a guarantee. And so I live in a world where that's good enough for me. And so I think, if we were in a situation where, we're a blended family. And so when we got together, I had my own career and he had his own career. And so, I think if we had gotten married and I was a stay-at-home mom or stay-at-home wife, that would have been a lot more challenging because, I really would have worried about those things. Like you were saying as a kid, like how are we going to provide for the kids and how are we going to take care of the bills with this kind of up and down stuff. Whereas from my perspective, like I had a steady income, I had a life that I could provide for. And it allowed for the ups and downs of his career. And so it didn't cause me nearly as much stress as it could have. There was a brief period where I stopped working to finish up my master's degree. And
It's okay. We floated right through that.
yes. And I did not know, and I did not know. And when
Didn't
I
tell
found
her.
out after the fact, I mean, I lost my shit.
Yeah.
I mean,
All right.
you know, and it was a necessary evil, and I had no idea the extent of financial stress that, and I guess, and for him, he was used to living in that world, so it didn't even really phase him. But when I found out about it, I felt terrible. I felt bad.
I feel guilty for like using that instead of working, which
Yeah. And because in my mind, I'd rather just work every day and be able to contribute and not put a burden on someone else. And so I think in our perspective, being the type of person that I am, having some sense of control in a financial way has kept things pretty stable to where he can come in and say, hey, this happened in the business. And it's like, okay, all right, we'll be okay, because I'm, like clockwork, this part has gone along. And if I didn't have that, it would have made our marriage a lot more stressful because I would have been more stressed and more anxious, and I just would have taken that out on him. And like you said, we don't carry that same sort of stress the same. And so I think in our world, if you're somebody that's independent and has kind of had your own career, and if you're worried about the ups and downs of it, I think to be able to know that you have some sense of control in that helps you just ride those a lot better from that perspective.
it's a good point.
Although we'd take you down if we went down. Everything would go.
Well, I mean, that was actually talking about the blended family thing.
Honestly, they could get a divorce pretty quickly and it wouldn't take her down.
Yeah, and I mean, when we got together, I mean, I was very adamant on keeping her out of all these things that I was, involved in because the roof could collapse.
The Chinese
many
curtain.
reasons. Yeah.
They say.
Yeah. I mean, it was, that was really important, and like when she was going to school, like, I mean, that debt was not really going towards her by any means whatsoever. I was just kind of taking that on, but she didn't like that very much. I didn't.
Well, at least she didn't know till it was finished.
Right. Yeah. Well, she needed to focus, right? I mean, I think
And again, and all comes full circle. I mean, tremendously thankful, but in
sure.
hindsight, if I had known, I wouldn't have taken that.
Yeah, that's exactly.
Gift, I guess.
I had, yeah.
Well, Sonya and I have a much different situation. I mean, we worked together long before we were married. And so we're used to working together. And basically, we pretty much do everything together. And she knows every single thing about our financial and business situations, which we both talk about constantly. I mean, it's the truth, isn't it? It's been that way for a long time.
Yeah, but actually he knows, I mean, I know the picture of our personal stuff, but he pretty much does it. And I'm good with that.
Yeah.
After all those companies and having to deal with all that, I don't want to deal with it.
Yeah.
I don't want to. But the one key thing you kept saying is you had something of your own. See, I think that's key, period.
Yeah, for sure.
Because whatever y'all are working on can completely consume you.
True.
And if it's the person who doesn't have anything else out there, they're left out in the cold. It's...
Yep.
I never left you out in the cold, though, honey.
I don't allow that.
You leave me in the cold at night, however, with the temperature set on 63.
Oh, okay. I thought it was like you shut off emotionally or something.
No.
No, that's me.
Okay. Yeah.
I just shut off. Like
She likes it so damn cold.
Really?
It's so hot.
I'm sleeping in flannel jammies with long sleeve T-shirts.
And a
under
long
them.
sleeve top.
I kid you not. And then I've got like double blankets on my
And
side.
I've got,
I'm still cold.
the sheet, the cotton waffle blanket, and then a cotton bedspread.
That's it.
And he gets over there next to me. And the problem is...
And I always wanted a hot
really-
wife. And I finally got
Yeah.
Yeah, there
I
we go.
think you wanted a different kind of hot. But then he would wake me up because I would get so hot.
Oh,
So now he's learned that he can feel when I start getting hot and he scoots away.
yeah.
It's a little bit much information for a daddy.
I mean, you brought it up. Though.
You brought it up.
I mean, Mark, we prepped
We
for
were
this
talking about
podcast.
jobs and
Okay.
somehow the
Yeah,
stress.
and we discussed about how we're going to behave in this podcast together. And I mean, you just kind of remember no cans being open.
Okay.
Right. I mean,
Thank you.
You started it off on the wrong.
He read us all the rules.
So having your own thing, though, is important to maintain your identity or your self-esteem in this process.
Yes,
Absolutely. Yeah.
It really is identity and self-esteem because at times in my first marriage, I made the lion's share of the money.
Yeah.
So now, then I immediately went to being a dependent.
Yeah.
And then a pandemic hit. So I'm a dependent stuck in a house.
Yeah.
I don't view you as a dependent at all, though. I always viewed you as a teammate. And so you're like my other half of brain.
Yeah.
So it's codependent.
Yeah.
But
We may need to have a therapy
which is
session
great.
on that.
not dependent.
It's just
Not a
codependent.
dependent.
You're just codependent.
No, yeah, we're just codependent. But so I never really thought of it or think of you that way ever, because I rely on you so much for your intel and your insight.
Oh, you guys, he does. But then when he doesn't want it, he will not bring up the subject. He will not let me read something. It's like, or he'll send it to me and I go, did you already send it out? And he goes, yeah. I'm like, why give it to me at that point?
Yeah.
I think a lot of, I'm going to switch the subject for a minute.
Good.
I don't know what you've seen, Eric, but in some of your work experiences along the way, in some of mine, I witnessed in some of the companies I've worked with, I witnessed where spouses who did not work for the business would come into the business and act as if the employees were their employees.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think of that?
I think that's bad.
A lot of small businesses have that problem
Mm-hmm.
where, the spouse gets confused about sort of what their role is. And then sometimes the company's a two-headed monster if they both work in it.
Yeah.
People don't know who to go to for an answer. And if the
Got to be
husband and
cautious
wife
about that.
disagree,
Like, everybody, you need somebody that's, leading the company, right? And you bring somebody else in.
Well, when we used to work together, I would just say to him, when I was so frustrated or so stressed out, I'd say, just give me a list of my job duties.
Mm.
And he would say, no, I don't want you in a box.
Yeah.
I hate job descriptions.
Yeah, but now
Despise them.
if you're
Always
both working in it, you need to have very clear descriptions.
That is true. Yeah, you don't want to be tripping over each other.
Because
Try to do the same
the
job.
problem is some of ours overlap, and that's where we would get.
Well, in our construction and development design build company, we both like design.
Yeah.
Okay? So at first, I think we had to butt heads a little bit over there.
Yeah, sure.
Eventually, I used to do it all myself, but eventually I figured out that she's really good at it. And I just said, okay, now it's yours. You do what you want.
Eventually, I learned forgiveness versus permission.
She hates it when people say that about her, however.
Oh,
But better to beg for forgiveness than permission after you tell them to do something?
Are you
Remember?
an example?
Yes, I was, actually.
Sophie, just
No, it had nothing to do with Sophie or me.
it's just happened like in the last.
No, I was thinking of a certain person who worked for you who said that to another worker, and that got you very unhappy, if you recall. Where you had told him to do something and he went ahead and did something different?
Oh yeah, this guy. He said, "Okay, mind you, my name is on his paycheck
right.
every Friday." He said, "I don't have to listen to her. I just ask for forgiveness later. I just apologize later." That's and some of the staff came and told me that. They were all telling me the same thing, and I was like,
Yeah. Well, that's a different
"Yeah."
Kind of problem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think in the context of
This guy truly. We're going nowhere near his name, but he just has no respect for females.
That's disrespectful.
But I remember one time I asked all the guys, like the trim carpenter and all of them, I said, how long would it take you to do this? What's the material cost? Everything. Mark was leaving town. I called a guy I knew with like United Rentals or whatever. And I got a saw that goes through brick, and we cut out a wall in a house while he was out of town because I thought it needed to be cut out.
Yeah, that was not.
Impressed.
Yeah, that was not a good day.
We kept arguing about it, and I finally looked at him. I said, I you're not going to change my mind. We're going to have to agree to disagree.
Yeah.
And he looked at me like he had never heard that phrase before.
No, I need to win.
Yeah, right.
I want to win the argument, and I want her to not. I don't want to just win it. I want her to say, "Yes,
He would just say, "You're right,"
100%.
and I just go, "No, I'm going to agree to disagree."
Yeah. Well,
So let's go. How about, like, we talked a little bit about financial
strain.
right? What about, like, there's a few other ones too that I think I was about to, yes, time. Let's talk about time strain a little bit as a spouse for an entrepreneur and what that looks like, how y'all have managed that.
Every now and then, I just look at him and go, "Okay, just put your phone down. We're going to eat." I don't do it very often, but every now and then, I'm sick of playing a game on my phone, and I want to put it down.
Yeah. And get engaged, be attentive, be a
Present.
That's a problem.
Be present. Yeah.
No question. I think all of us could have, that we get distracted by that stuff and we're not paying attention to the person. But
you can't expect that person to be like the person who goes to the job, leaves it at 5.
Exactly.
You can't expect that much. You just have to choose your battles and say,
yeah. Well, because you've been there yourself.
I've been
so
there.
that's the thing. I think it helps is,
my daughter one time said, because I left work early and I was hanging out with her, and she said, I was still having to be on my phone, and she said, she didn't like that. And she said, "You're not paying attention to me. You're not there for me." She's like 8. And I said, "Honey, it's still before 5 o'clock. And then she had an accident on the trampoline a couple days later. She didn't get hurt. But I went and got her a trampoline coach. And I said, "What do we do? We've got to get her back on there really quickly."
Yeah.
And he came over. She had no idea he was coming over. He came to her house and he worked with her out there. And then that night she goes, "Thank you, Mommy." I said, "I won't always be here when you want me, but I will always be here when you need me."
True.
And there needs to be the difference. Like if I say, "No, I want to talk to you about something right now," you just have to
Get to break in there.
Yeah, and I think sometimes if somebody doesn't, the spouse doesn't have something else, that's more difficult.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think that in the beginning, again, especially just because from my previous relationships, I mean, we're other military, so just operated from a different perspective. And the interesting thing about the being in an entrepreneur world is that your job isn't just at the job. It's the social hour here. It's this social event. It's going to this banquet, and understanding that all of that is still a work setting, which the thing I love about my job most of the time is that I can leave it at work and walk away. Granted, since transitioning into some of that changes a little bit. And I think that has been helpful on both of our parts, because now I do take some of my work home and some of the burden of it and sticks with me. And so he has to kind of navigate through that and give me space and time, where in the past, I mean, he would be up till all hours, and I'm like, okay, I just have to get used to going to bed and realizing, okay, well, he's not going to come to bed yet. Or, maybe he would do something, have these social events till late in the evening when I thought, okay, this is way too late. You need to be home. And so we kind of, especially with kids too, I think, when our girls were younger when we got together, and, that's another stressful dynamic on top of that, is that I wanted us to have some sort of structure, to a degree for our daughters.
Sure.
So, so we came up with this thing that, we would at least try to, have everyone be home to eat dinner together at a certain time, and that wasn't always the case, but, we try to do those things, on occasion. And we always go to church together on Sundays. And so, but it didn't happen naturally. I mean, there was a lot of,
Sure.
He'd come home and, I'm pissed and ready to fight, and he's not understanding why. And I'm thinking, it's 9 o'clock and you're just rolling in, we haven't even seen each other,
Yeah, I can see where Eric could walk in and go, "What's up?"
And like with Bennett, with his
Start
daughter
making
and my
jokes.
daughters, we're trying to, and I'm like, we're trying to blend families and all that. And it's like, okay, I would tell him, like, in the course of a week, we might spend 30 minutes together if we're not very intentional about like drawing a line at some point, and I think in this world that you guys live in too, I think that it could be very easy for your marriage to fall apart and kind of fall to the back burner.
Yeah.
Because you've got so many other competing
No, it's true.
things that are pulling at you if you're not really, really intentional about creating time and space for each other.
You know, Mark, it kind of makes me think about some of the things we've talked about in other ones about how there's no such thing, or we don't think of a life-work balance,
Right.
right? We think
Work-life
integration, right? And
Yes,
everything's,
yes.
and that's how we manage, how you manage
Yeah.
and I manage, because it's all just one big
Right.
pile of spaghetti, right? To us. But I mean, but I'm now a little bit more conscious about thinking about how maybe y'all think of that.
She made a very good point when you're talking about integrating. Maybe the deal is you are home for dinner 4 nights a week out of 7.
Mm.
You may go back to work.
Yeah.
But everybody, because that's what I used to do. I used to go home, eat dinner. I didn't cook, so, it's ready for me there. And then I'd go back.
Mhm.
But if
And we still have our Thursday night date night tradition.
yes, we always
Yeah,
have
that's-
Thursday night date nights.
That's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good.
Last night we ran to a restaurant, weren't there very long, and then piled up in the bed and binge watched.
Yeah.
Suits. Yeah. She said she likes Lee Law.
Oh my God, I love that
Suits.
show. It's hysterical.
Great
Yeah.
show.
Well, I think that that's important too. I mean, like, how do we, and I think that's good advice for any other spouses that are out there, because I mean, if you are, think about being newly married or dating somebody that is an entrepreneur, and how do you make sure to settle that time? Because I mean, I think that, being in the moment and present in the moment is actually has always been a pretty big challenge of mine.
Yeah.
Just because there's emails, there's
Right.
text messages,
Exactly.
and then there's things to think about tomorrow. What's my calendar like? What's all this stuff? And it's just all
Yeah.
morphing in. And I mean, but you've done a really good job of helping me. Well, slowly for surely, she's worked on me where I'm got this
Hey,
settled down
You're
thing
not
going.
quite as responsive as you used to be sometimes.
No, it's true.
I've noticed. So
Yeah.
I take that as a sign of your success.
Oh, thanks, Mark.
You're not
You know?
actually.
Really?
Quite as
Yep.
responsive.
Wow.
You-
Okay.
well, think about it. You go out and mow the lawn, you get into
That's
your
true.
zone,
No,
and
I do.
have your-
You take more structured breaks, right?
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
definitely something that probably Sonya has helped you
Yeah.
get into. How that's valuable. to you.
Sonya has helped me with everything.
Yeah.
I kid you not.
Yeah.
She really has.
I remember one thing he used to give me a really hard time about. Again, I got up really early. And if I went to the office, you could get more done between 5 and 8 than
Yeah.
8 and 5.
Yeah.
Sure.
And he would always stay up late and be like, I don't know why you get up that early. Now he is out of the bed long before me. And he just look at me and go, you could get so much done. Like I'd never known that.
Yeah.
I was like, really? Can you?
Is there a problem with us stealing y'all's ideas and claiming them as our own? And
Yeah, no.
I mean, whatever.
It just,
I'm sure I've never done that to you,
Oh,
right?
no. But, if it's something you want badly enough, if you put it out there and they're like, no, and then they circle back around like it's their idea, call it.
Yeah.
You're getting it, whatever it was.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. And I think because being on the other side of it, like the lifestyle that y'all would try to sustain up to that point, that it's not sustainable for long term. This constantly burning the candle at both ends and not knowing that, hey, it's okay to disconnect and take a break. I mean, I tell Eric, I'm very, very black or up, and I'm like, listen, all these people, they will not be at your bedside, when you die. And so I'm really
Right.
two shits about them. I don't care what the situation is at the end of the day. These are the core people that will be there for you. And so, and obviously in my line of work, like I see that on a daily
Yeah, you
basis.
see people who are at the end.
Or
They're-
sitting by
Exactly.
somebody's.
It's
Yeah,
like,
and they're having the
this email
regrets.
or this decision
Yeah,
or
no, you're right. I'm sure
Yeah.
that's
it's not my business.
impact on
My
yeah.
clients that are going to.
Right.
We will make sure that Mark comes to your bedside.
Thank you.
Well, if not that, at least your funeral.
Yeah.
So don't worry about
Or
that.
the reading of the will.
But
About eulogy.
so yeah, well, Eric's a little younger than me, and he's still into that mode. I've honestly, in the last 5 years, I've really shifted a lot out of the out of the insane mode
out of the building into
at the both ends. Yeah.
Both ends, yeah.
But I mean, it's, it's normal. I mean, I've got a friend, he's an entrepreneur and he's 30 years old and, all he thinks about is
the next kill,
the next thing, the next thing he's going to buy, whatever. And at some point, it sort of loses its appeal. I mean, we had like, I don't know, what was it, like 57 or 67 houses, apartments, and condos, and 44,000 square feet of office space, and like 10 or 20 cars and 10 bikes. And
so I'm going to hang out there for a minute because I've witnessed that, right? I mean, when I started working with Mark, it was all these things that you just said.
And it kept growing.
And then when y'all got married and like, I mean, obviously
we got married.
Obviously Sonya had, I'll get something in it, but obviously Sonya had an impact on you recognizing, wait a minute, this is taking everything from me. How did that go? What was your...
One way it started, I specifically remember this. He gets mad because of my memory, and I remember things that impact me.
Yeah.
And I went to one of our bankers. We had like 16 condos. They were separate, but, and I went to the banker and I said, they're all on one note. And I said, if we start selling these, what will you take off the note? So I found out structuring. I just was like, we got to start getting rid of stuff. I literally cannot keep doing this.
Yeah.
Well, she said the quality of the vehicles parked in our condos was deteriorating, which meant that our tenant quality was deteriorating, which meant that we should get rid of them.
Yeah,
actually, pretty good
what
logic.
I did. That's what I did say, because they were building all this new student housing.
So, but how, like as a spouse though, like how challenging was that to kind of, I mean, I like to break through the entrepreneurial stubbornness.
I will tell you, because, I worked with him for years too.
Yeah.
And controlled the purse strings.
Yeah. That spouse has to get to that point. You're not going to say one thing to them and then they, like, Mark, just agree with me.
Yeah.
You have to say it a few times and then you have to present the evidence of it. And he's okay, as you know.
That was
okay.
There's a lot back of.
Yeah. And then all the antique cars were in my office. So I'm moving the cardboard under them, and
because they're all leaking.
Yeah, and then finally I was like, we're putting epoxy floor down because nothing gets through that.
Just don't leave me hanging on bumps, man. I mean, I'm on video. It'd be terrible.
Yeah, you can't hang them out to dry. But so, honestly, I enlisted his brother too, who is older than he. Well, everybody's older than he is in his family. He's a baby, and his brother. I'm just like, this stuff has got to be simplified. You have to get rid of some of the chaos. And his brother got him on board. He's far more eloquent than I am.
Yeah.
So then that, and then I'm losing it in the design construction stuff. This is the one I went, he looked at me one day and he goes, I think you just like being angry. That was a good idea.
That's like saying calm down.
Yeah.
Right? It always works.
So I said to him, fine. Far. Yeah. I had like 6 houses and 2 commercial jobs. And I gave him one of the houses. I said, you take it. You do it. 2 weeks in, he was like, you're right. We got to shut it down. I'm so sorry. I'm sorry for what I did to you. And I was laying there thinking, should I ask him to be very specific or should I just take this? Yeah. But the one thing I was going to say about shifting and you being younger, you do, whether you want to admit it or not, think about your life as the next kill. Oh my God, the next thing, you get to a point where you don't have that energy. And it's very hard to start changing your mindset.
Yeah.
I think my greatest earning potential is in the rearview mirror now. So I have to approach life differently.
Interesting.
Yeah, you're not there yet.
No.
Keep going, baby.
Keep
Thanks,
going.
bro.
Okay, just did.
Don't forget,
What's your
I was
perspective?
46 when I first sold my business and changed my life, but then I ended up repeating a lot of the same mistakes.
Yeah.
So does that, I mean,
Came back into it.
yeah,
But here's the deal. Keep going forward. Take a chunk of cash, stick it over an account, and say, this is your security blanket.
right. Don't, if you could afford to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah. I mean,
Well, the security blanket's relative to the people.
What are you?
know.
What are you thinking? What are you over there thinking? babe?
well, I mean, we already know. I mean, again, I've already said that, in the beginning of all of this, that, I mean, call me Negatron and Buzzkill,
Negatron?
Yeah.
Negatron.
Negative. Negative.
I'm gonna
Yeah.
have
It's
to remember that
Negatron.
one.
I mean,
Negasaurus Rex.
Negative
Penny
Nancy.
for me is
I've heard.
Buzzkill. I mean,
Oh.
which is fine. I mean,
Well, sometimes
She's like,
we
I
need
know
that.
who I am.
No, we
No,
don't.
sometimes-
I say
sometimes
that,
we-
but I mean, it's actually to your
Yeah.
point. Like, I'll come to Tara like with ideas, and if she's, I mean, I always like listen to them because
Sure.
I mean, it actually grounds me.
I
quite a
think
bit. There's a
women
lot of
in
stupid
general-
things I would have done
No, well, yeah.
and
man,
might
have
do
done.
still.
But I think
Stick with it.
women in general tend to be a little bit more skeptical and
Yeah.
critical in
Sure.
their thinking.
yeah, I mean, and just with all of that, it
So-
always, I mean, it's such a, like, you could go into so much detail about it, but I think just these sort of conversations, again, just kind of, there's so much behind it. Like, what was your upbringing like, not
Right.
only, and so the things that motivate you. And so, he and I talk, and from childhood backgrounds, for very loosely defined, he had a lot of stability as a kid. I did not. And so for me, stability equals happiness, and the level for that to be achieved is very attainable. And so I tell him, even at this point, he's like, hey, I want to do this. I want to invest. And I'm like, for what? I'm like, why?
Yeah, why?
You know, like, what else do you, like, when is enough enough? Because
Yeah. We all, yes, I understand that completely.
yeah, and it's like, I mean, we're not gonna use all of this in the course of one lifetime, and
Well, so I think that one thing too that I've noticed with you is like talk about burning the candles at both ends, which I appreciate. Although at first it doesn't seem like it's a loving comment to slow down or to rest or to just take it easy. But I mean, a lot of times it's for health reasons.
Yeah.
It's for longevity in life. It's about, I mean, I remember when we were first dating, she's like, no, I want you to be around when we're in 40 years, and I'm like, why? What?
What?
Yeah.
40 years. What?
I want to be a rich widow. Like, that's not my goal in life.
Yeah.
I mean,
I think, though, Tara, I mean, I'm not trying to interrupt you. I'm sorry.
you're fine. You broke a rule.
I so know. So where he's going with this, and I'm chiming in after.
No, I was going to say, I think that a lot of times it doesn't have anything to do with money.
No.
These things that we do them just because we do them. It's part of a way of life, and it keeps us energized and thinking and
Yeah.
satisfied in certain ways.
And it's fun. It's fun. It's exciting. It's adrenaline.
It's exciting.
The money and all that, it's not like,
It's a
we're
byproduct.
going to do this other thing just so we can make money. We don't do anything just so we can make money, actually.
Well, and I think
Yeah.
Don't you think?
No, 100%.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. I mean, I agree with that.
you've invested. Sometimes it's helping the other person.
Yeah.
And, it's like bringing somebody up younger than you. It's, it's passing the torch.
That's very gratifying. I get that.
I will say to the rest point, with the shift that maybe you're not going to have as many kills in your future as you have in your past, you have to admit that, at our ages, maybe you shouldn't mow the lawn at high noon when the heat index is 110.
Mm-hmm.
And then you lean over and you get dizzy and your wife's like, sit down.
Yeah.
Mow half of it today, the other half tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
But there's that thinking that you're still,
20.
yeah, you still got to do it. You still got to do
You're
it.
Superman.
Yeah.
Superman. Yeah.
Yeah, you can do anything.
Well, but I think, he's mentioned this, that I think it's interesting on the other perspective to look back. And like you've mentioned before, like all the years where you've neglected yourself and your health and your rest. And then you get to this point where it's like, okay, now you're just doing damage control. And I think that is important for younger people that, starting, because this is how you have 30-year-olds show up in the ER having heart attacks, and because they're living on caffeine and cigarettes and, and then you get to a certain point and it's like, okay, well, you're going to live a lot longer than that time frame where you just are living for the kill. And then, so what do you want the quality of that life to look like?
Yeah.
And, that's where, I come in with my buzzkill and all this.
No, it's truth. It's true.
It's like, what do you, he laughs at me because I'm like, my goal is, to see the two of us sitting on our front porch, in rocking chairs and we're old and gray. And but there are steps that you're going to take and choices you're going to make throughout your life that will or won't get us there,
Yeah.
So true. We're on our rocking chairs on our front porch, actually, right now. Okay.
Yeah, they don't look like rocking chairs. That's what I gauge what chair that we can have outside. I go, I got to be able to rock like a crazy person. But the other thing I was going to say that I think a lot of young couples don't do is first recognize if you're the entrepreneurial type and talk about it before you get married.
Oh, absolutely.
Because it splits up more companies, it crashes more.
Oh, no question about it.
Don't even get married. Just shut up. Until you're ready, till you both know.
So go into that a little bit more. I don't really understand.
I think that my watch just told me I need to stand up.
That's
But I think that a whole lot of people, can I name names of people who've been on your shows?
whatever you want.
Omar.
Okay.
He had one girlfriend, I think it was Omar, or it was another one of your students, had a girlfriend who just didn't get. But they had been together a couple of years. Okay, you got to
Right, second or
You're not going to get it.
Yeah.
Because it's not going to get better once you get married. Once you get married, they're going to say, you have to be home because you are my spouse.
So I want to hang out there for a second.
Okay.
I keep saying that, but I think this is pretty cool because what you both have done is legitimately, neither one of you are like us or thinking like us, are entrepreneurs.
Kind of.
Well, kind of. Well, you're close. You're close, but you're also. But I mean, had you not done what we talked about earlier about selling off assets, this dude would have had 10x what he had, maybe.
But I think this goes to what he said. Men and women see it differently. And the other fact was that burden was on my shoulders. He was in a different company working.
Yeah. So, but how did y'all get to the point where, or was there a point to where you start kind of understanding more about what's going on in the heads of your entrepreneurial spouse? Like, where is it that you're, where are some of the territories, the boundary lines? Like, and how do you basically advice for a spouse that's with it, like what you're talking about?
You need to ask her that because I've been able to predict his moves for a very long time. And it's because my wiring is more similar.
Okay.
I think for sure, I think being secure in yourself and as the individual. So, male, female, that having your own sense of security and identity, kind of like we talked about earlier. And
that allows you to be honest. So, yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And then just, and having, you have to have a extensive amount of trust because, I think, and there was a learning curve when we first got together for sure, because I didn't understand this world where your phone is always, right there and it's going off. All hours of the night, like that is not a world I live in. And we still have some of that, I'd have to tell them, hey, turn your phone off. But, and it can almost feel, it's cliche, but it can almost feel like a extramarital affair. Because you can commit, there's so much time that goes into this career that doesn't have clear boundaries, that doesn't have a clear start and end time. And so then to kind of, number one, expressing that, because I think if you're someone that just kind of builds up this resentment about it, it's not going to go anywhere at all, and you just, and then you just have to kind of realize that, okay, this is what their life is going to look like. And 100%, I think if I didn't have, again, something that really occupied a big part of my time, when we first got together, again, we did the blended family thing, but, I was in a typical nursing schedule. So I'd work 3 12-hour shifts. And so during my time of working, I was really engaged in that. And then we would kind of reconnect and be very intentional about that downtime. And so I kind of had a gradual introduction into how much this could bleed over into things. We just had to kind of have conversations about it. Like, okay, you have to turn your phone off at this time. Like, you don't need to respond at this time. But I think that, if you're insecure or needy, like this role is not going to be conducive for that,
True.
And I think that people really, and it may be left up to the entrepreneur side of it to say, can you live this life with me? Because you can't change me once we go over the threshold.
That's true. Yeah.
I always say I think people should spend as much money on pre-marriage counseling as they do on their wedding. And it would, yeah, but
our wedding cost like $67 or whatever.
Yeah, well,
whatever the wedding license or marriage license cost.
And then,
but there were no refunds. It said on the sign.
yes,
I kid you not. Oh man,
they said no refunds.
Fair enough.
What?
I'm cracking up with a woman. I said, "You mean people ask for
Washington
refunds?"
County. She's like, yeah.
No, at first she didn't. She was all business until it was over. Until, we filled out the paperwork and she did it. And she said, yeah, they really do. I was like, oh my God.
Yes, for a refund on that. That's great.
But
I changed my mind.
Yeah.
I want my money back.
But I mean, a lot of churches do pre-marriage counseling, and that's great. But that's not the be-all, end-all.
Yeah.
And in my first marriage, we did it through the church, but it was nothing religious.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, there were parts of it, but you had to do this test. And it was 150 questions. You answered it on yourself, and then you answered it on your soon-to-be spouse. Boy, it graphs where y'all are way off, and that is exactly where we were way off 20 years later.
Yeah.
That's interesting. I remember when we
did something similar.
we did actually, and it really helped us out. Like, because I think it gave me a perspective. Like, wow, she is nowhere where I'm thinking.
It's like the emotional thinker and the logical thinker, and and I couldn't be more far logic, and he couldn't be more to the emotional side of things.
Yeah.
So I think that's really important. I think some people don't want to see it, or they're like, oh, it'll be fine. No, marriage is hard.
No, they're totally.
And
It's a relationship.
you had, like you call the extramarital affair, or I call like the other wife or the other husband. It gets really hard if you don't know your really grounded starting point.
Interesting. I think that one thing I was thinking about too is the burden sometimes that maybe we might carry and bring home. Like, I know there's been many a times when, like some big things happen, and you got a lot on the line with the business. And I don't know, like, personally, like if I would bring that back home necessarily or shed it on you, but I'm sure my behavior or my distance, or you can see me processing and thinking a lot.
Sure.
Like, how does a spouse help or not help, or do they get out of the way? What's been y'all's experience in something?
You just have to ask them.
Yeah.
One time they may just want you to be quiet so they can think. Another time they want to bounce something off of you. You just have to ask and then respect their response.
Yeah, it's simple.
Even if they don't know what they're saying.
Yeah, right. Even if they don't know what they're saying.
Yeah, I think that's kind of been the same in our situation too. There are some times that you just need more time to kind of process. I think the thing that is, and I don't know if it's indicative of everyone in that type of career, but the other thing too, and you might be this way as well, is that I feel like being in that creative mindset, that like your emotional shifts and it's much more fluid. Like, you could have had a really bad day at work and had something terrible happen, and then you come home and suddenly you're in a really good mood, or, you can go engage in this thing and you can be really positive and outgoing, or you could have this thing knock you down and then you're back up again. Whereas, whereas in my world, it's like, I don't make those changes nearly fluidly. And so to kind of, so I think we've kind of compromised on some of that to where, had that, you come home and you're all excited and
that's the other side of it, right?
And I'm ready to chill and settle down.
I'm like, why isn't everybody excited today?
Yes, yeah.
It's a great day.
That's kind of the world that he lives in, and so to kind of
I'll be excited for you.
meet each other there. Yeah, that won't be me.
Yes, and you could have a terrible day, something bad happened, but you've been sitting there thinking about it. You've been staying in the zone, and by the time you walk in the front door, you're like, I got it. I know how to fix this. It's and it goes like that. I really wasn't being funny when I said, even if they don't know what they're saying, because has he ever come in at some point and he's, I don't know, gruff or something, and so you just leave him alone?
Yeah.
But then at some point you're like, okay, talk to me about this. What's going on? Sure. And you really did want to talk about it, but you just so you just sort of have to read the tea leaves too.
Yeah, it's true.
And I think that definitely comes with time and getting to know your partner, because in the beginning, early in a relationship, and not having a situation where you've worked for a long time. I think there were times where he might come in with that sort of mindset and have a gruff comment or be short or something. Then, of course, as a typical not aware of that world, you can, that's again where you can take it personally, where it can escalate, and it's not even anything remotely related to your relationship. And so not being able to come back and say like, okay, this is not about me. If you don't have a good sense of grounding, that would be hard to do too, because like you said, sometimes it takes a while to get to what the actual issue is.
Can I ask another question? So I think this is a common issue that a lot of spouses of entrepreneurs have to confront. I don't know if it's been the case for you, Eric, with the kind of businesses that you had or anything, but in our case, like, we had to borrow just millions and millions of dollars. Mm-hmm. The spouse had to sign, even though the spouse isn't on the business, for all the real estate stuff. And did that ever happen with you guys? And were you ever like uncomfortable? Like, oh my God, Eric, just here's the loan papers. It's only 2.5 million or whatever. Just sign up for that. Or it's 20 million. You know what I mean? I think that causes a lot of problems right there, where they don't really understand that, or that seems like, oh my God, I would never do that.
If they're wired differently, if they're not wired differently, they get.
Did you ever have to go through that?
No, I think we were fortunate in that aspect, that I feel like through the ups and downs. Again, in the beginning, we really had separate incomes, like the house.
Kept it separate too.
Yeah, it was in my name. I had bought the house, and in these bigger, and again, with his company too, the fact that they went so long without, having to take out loans and all this, they just, so I think we were spared in that capacity. Now we're in a different situation, kind of like you said earlier. I'm like, who am I to come along? He's been into this for 30 years. And so it's like, man, this is your call. Okay, yes, I will sign. Like, we wouldn't be at this point if it hadn't been for his, persistence.
Sure. You trust his judgment. It's the bottom line.
Exactly. Yeah. And so now we signed some of that stuff, and he'll tell me, and I'm like, okay.
Yeah. That's true. Yeah.
But I do think that's a problem for a lot of people. They're, if they're not from that world.
Well, I could imagine, like,
well,
coming home and being like, hey, I'm about to take on this large amount of debt. I need you to co-sign with me on this. And you're not ingrained or involved in business. You're over here working this, you're working a stable job.
Or you're just
a
house spouse.
Yeah, and I'm asking you to take on significant risk.
Yeah,
that would be sketchy.
I don't know that I could have done that back in. I think that would have been a hard, and again, that goes back to wiring, and I don't know that I could have done that, because it had been like, especially at a point, my whole thing was like, okay, look at the track record of this.
Yeah.
Why is this beneficial?
Yeah, there's definitely a timing aspect to that.
Well, like, how would you have felt if you knew that at one point in one of the companies, I was cutting checks or draft for $86,000 a month just for principal and interest. That didn't include payroll,
Overhead,
Nice.
insurance, vehicles,
Nothing.
trucks.
and we went
office.
11 months without selling anything because we had too many things going and nothing was getting completed.
Heavy, man.
Yeah, so
I think that's the little dark underbelly that people don't understand about being at this level of success per se. Like from the outside, I mean, you're sustaining all of that, but very few people know that behind closed doors, this is like the struggle that, you guys are coming home to every night, and this burden of like, okay, when is this going to let up,
well, that had to do with me wanting to sell stuff because if something went down and it didn't, we got rid of everything, but I do, with that level of stress, back then I had one drink a night, but it's a mixed drink. So depending on that day, how strong that drink was.
Yeah.
It was a better day.
Well,
it was a
yeah.
lighter drink.
At our peak, we had about $19 or $20 million worth of total debt. That's a lot of debt.
Yeah.
It's a lot of debt.
Yeah, and it's hard.
And I thought Zweig Group, made my head hurt when it was 2.5 million or
Yeah, that's what it was.
what?
Yeah, it was our SBA.
No, I'm
Okay.
talking about before that.
Oh, 2 million.
2 million.
Yeah, but we were paying 20% interest for that.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's crazy.
And all those lawsuit things too.
But we got to keep the ownership. What lawsuit things?
From the former owners.
Oh, okay, that's good. Don't give people the wrong idea.
Sorry.
Okay.
Digging the former
We don't have
owners
a
out of the
bunch of
ditch.
litigation. Yeah, yeah.
So we started out this podcast, and you both
I'm
said,
not even sure where it went.
well, yeah, it goes wherever it needs to go.
Okay.
Right? And y'all done a great job taking it to where we're at. But in the beginning, y'all both stated that you don't usually get out in front. Why? Why? And yeah, I mean,
I've defined mine before.
Okay.
I'm wired more like the two of you than I am her, but I don't want to be out front. I could get up and speak in front of people if I was talking about something completely separate from me, but I don't want to get up. I'm just not that person. Facebook, there are a ton of pictures on me. I have never uploaded a picture to Facebook in my life. It's just not me. I mean, my job, I used to feel like, was to make sure when you were pushed out there, you had the information you needed, you had the, and it went fine. And I'm perfectly fine with that. And most of the time, I don't care about any recognition. One time I got irritated when somebody said, they were at a restaurant and they kept saying, oh my God, Mark did such a great job on this house. Mark didn't walk in that house except at the very beginning and the end. But I'll tell you,
She doesn't. She's good about that. I know.
and I would keep him out for a very good reason. When he walks in, he sees every detail that if you go in there all the time, you don't see him anymore.
right.
And so he would walk in and go, you got to get that done. And he would point out all these little details. And then I can make a clean list and we're good. And then, at the other company, I didn't want, again, it goes back to wiring. People have to understand their own wiring.
True.
Yeah, I mean, same. I've done it before in different capacities. I mean, I remember when I was in the military, I did a lot of out front stuff. And it just doesn't have a lot of appeal for me.
Makes me insanely uncomfortable. Like red rash.
And I think, he and I have talked. I think again, and I think I like it better. I don't consider myself a people person, but I like being able to see the direct impact that I can have on an individual specifically. And so like in my job, I have a lot of hard conversations. And
Dealing with life and death.
and so it's like, okay, I know exactly how I've impacted this one person. And so to
Sure.
me, that
That's
more
rewarding.
gratifying.
Yeah. Than just the ego gratification from the unknown masses that adore you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I think that
That's a good point.
Well, both those points are interesting to me because what you said about being extremely uncomfortable, like I immediately, like in relation with you, like I don't understand that. Like, and I can respect that because I don't want to be put in extremely uncomfortable positions. So I think that like as an entrepreneur, you understand your spouse.
Well,
on that.
is. I think for a long time he didn't understand that.
Yeah.
He thought I wanted to be.
Yeah, for sure.
No, really, I don't.
No,
for should be that you should be out front.
No, I shouldn't. I mean, my mouth.
But guys, you two, as you said, you have to be secure with yourself. Okay, you guys have enough inner security that you're not competing with us on a daily basis. I was married to somebody before who I think greatly resented any attention I got that she didn't get. And she saw herself competing with me. It's just that simple. And it wasn't a good competition, frankly, because she didn't do what she needed. Yeah,
as much as you did.
Right. But I mean, it wasn't a good competition because A, I'd been doing it a lot longer and was much better established, and B, she didn't want to do the work that it takes in order to get the accolades or attention. I mean, truthfully,
Position.
yeah. I mean, wouldn't you say that's true? That you're so different in that regard. If you're more secure. And I used to say to her, the only way you're really going to feel good about yourself is to get out and do something and really do it. And,
to change the world. You just have to give yourself a sense of accomplishment.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So that's the second part I was going to say, because like you're talking about the individual, that makes a lot of sense to me, especially with what, you do specifically. But, in my brain, it is about changing the world and the community. Like, I don't think about helping a specific individual. I mean, unless you're talking to them, right? Obviously you get I understand the value of that, but I completely respect the value of it. But, in my mind, it is, what am I doing today that's impacting on, a much broader scale?
Yes.
But I think those are those like differences that I think that as a young entrepreneur with and a spouse, or an entrepreneur and a spouse, understanding those differences and actually zooming out a little bit, because, like, for example, like if we're going to, Tara brought up the events, but if we're going to an event that's very important to be at and it's for good cause and all this kind of stuff, and, there's a lot of reasoning for me to go, and maybe my wife, and I think an entrepreneur needs to understand it, like maybe for your spouse, like there's not much reason, but they're going to support you, and that means a lot. And then I've gotten a lot better about respecting how you want to go, and we've been able to like blend that partnership and going, versus in the beginning it was just all about what the hell I was wanting to do, and and I mean, like, and I couldn't understand why you weren't super stoked to the gills to be there.
Well, it works to your advantage though, because then I think over time, I mean, we joke about it, but I've gotten better at this stuff,
for sure.
Because it's understanding, again, that this is your job too. And so, in those situations, like we asked at the beginning of this, what's the rules, like how are we engaging in this environment and representing our spouses and interacting with employees and, just all of that. And so kind of that compromise of knowing, like, listen, no, I don't want to be there at 6:01 when social hour starts. If I can roll up at this time and, engage in this way, and I've got a good 2 hours, and then after that,
Well, there's been, like, on that, I like talking about it because it's pretty objective, right? But I mean, speaking of understanding each other, like, I will go to the social hour at 6, and I'll be there from 6 to 7:30. Then Tara will show up for the event, right? But I need to be there earlier. I want to be there earlier. She doesn't. It's like, that's okay. I don't mind. Like, you can't misunderstand and sacrifice the other person for what you think is the right way to go.
Yeah, for sure.
I think so. I guess the one thing that concerns me is it seems like you guys have to do so much accommodation for us. It's always like, well, what
several times you have said, I've gotten better. And I was like, when are you getting better, Eric?
Yeah. Okay. It's not all you guys adjusting
I mean, that's the life of a narcissist.
Yeah.
I mean, don't be upset with me because I'm a narcissist.
Partly due to being an entrepreneur.
No, okay, so we're not highlighting the things. Like, okay, so things I've gotten better about. Absolutely. Sonya's like, I want to hear about this. Definitely a lot better about a lot of things. Much more health conscious for long term. I mean, like,
you always had your
No, he would do that
exercise regimens of one sort.
a week and a half, and then
Is it-
I mean, it's
diet.
6 months later,
Yeah.
he'd do it for 2 days.
yeah. Well, that's still consistent.
At least he does it, though. I mean, he does it.
So I understand the value of sleep now.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, God, yeah.
You know, like I've
with you.
learned that. I've understood that, and now I understand the value of coming home. I mean, this is a big one that Tara and I've been talking about. It's like I used to, like, I couldn't be at home, like, because that's like, you know, it's time to tuck it in and not be engaged and wind down. I didn't want to wind down, but now I actually really, really appreciate it, enjoy it.
Yeah,
It's
absolutely.
it's wonderful. Like, but I would have never been there without her. You know, the events things, like, I mean, it's not, you know, such a high priority where it's sacrificing other things in my life.
Yeah, exactly.
You know,
Sure.
I'm able to disengage in the evenings and spend time with the family and with Tara. You know, there's a lot of things that I'm better at.
Okay, well, that's good to hear.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm glad you cleared that up. I didn't want to publish this podcast. And everybody's like, Eric's the biggest ass he ever lived.
Oh, he's just a big silverback
Narcissist.
narcissist. Okay, we've changed it. I have a question, though, and I'm not sure you were talking about. Okay, when you said the value of coming home or being in your house, when did that begin to shift for you? No, years. Tell me which years that began to shift.
I would say it's been probably just the last 18 months, 2 years.
I'm just going to add something here. I think COVID changed people. I was an on-the-go person. I could not sit still at home. Now we have to go.
That's true. Yeah.
I think part of it is just having a decent relationship and a home you feel comfortable in.
That is.
Absolutely.
When you don't have that, you just get in the habit of you're just going to run because you don't really want to be there.
exactly.
It's an obligation and that's it.
Yeah.
I mean, I think, you know, when we were talking about bringing this podcast together, right? I mean, it was like, from mine and your perspective, you know, it was about kind of the entrepreneurship, but in reality, this is a lot about just straight up
Life.
and
Of course it
relationships, right? I mean,
You
like,
can't separate it from the business.
that's the point, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, like, you have to, I mean, it's
Business is full of relationships,
totally,
too.
Yeah.
totally. And what we do as entrepreneurs is affecting the family, the livelihood. And I don't think there's been times I've been very tunnel vision about that. Like, to me, they truly are separate, but I've learned that that's not the case because I've gotten better.
Yeah.
FYI, I've improved.
It's improved.
I have improved.
I believe that. I know you. You're constantly learning, improving, getting better all the time.
Thanks, Mark.
That's why you're so successul.
People out in podcast land, I adore Eric, even if I give him a hard time.
Thank you.
I do too. I adore you.
So do I.
This is
Just marry you.
this is an Eric adoration.
Her response would be like,
This
"Am I not married to you?"
adoration.
I mean,
But I will say,
say,
but I do want to point one thing out, okay? You said maybe 18 months or 2 years ago.
Oh.
What happened 18 months or 2 years ago?
Yeah, no shit.
Certain amount. Okay? You had a transaction.
Oh yeah.
That is,
I mean,
it takes a certain amount
Sure.
of stress. on
Yeah.
you.
Oh, totally. Yeah, HR and legal and all that. I mean, that's
Well, and just having some money.
It's a
I mean,
breathing room. Yeah.
to where you're not just, it's not this feast or famine, existence that you're trying to beat out. I mean, it does make a difference.
I tell you what, the biggest thing on that whole deal is starting to be able to have some focus in the work
Sure.
every day, right? I mean,
Instead
because
of you're having to think.
oh, dude, like
all the
everything,
things.
yeah, for 20 years, it's just like,
Now,
Be hard.
having done that the first time 20 years ago myself,
yeah,
the only thing I would just caution you about is that I was, truthfully, I never made more money than I did when I did one thing and I did it really well.
Mhm.
I'm just going to point that out.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever had the same degree of success in other things that I did. Now, that said, I'm a lot happier. It's a lot more interesting. Maybe it's lower risk because you're not dependent on just one thing. You know what I'm saying? But you're out there planting a lot of seeds, and you've got your businesses and all that, and we all do. You know.
So are you saying that you should focus on one thing?
No, I'm not. I'm just saying that there's trade-offs.
Okay, but your example, like that, you're happier by focusing on one.
No, I'm happier by
spreading
doing lots of things.
Okay, yeah.
It's. I'm just saying it's not necessarily the way to maximize your financial gain.
No, true. And I think my point is like in that particular business, and plus it was a growing. I mean, this is like becoming this organism.
Well, sure, you got
that's huge and growing
employees at this point.
Yeah, and just having to think about every single strategy of every department that are coming with a lot of demands, and that was eliminated. And I could have an actual role within the company versus trying to
put out fires all the time.
You know, I mean, like honestly, my partner did such heavy lifting. I mean, like all kudos to him, but I mean, it doesn't detach your brain just because somebody else is doing it. Like you're still engaged and concerned. But that event allowed me to know that it's okay to kind of start stepping away from some of those responsibilities.
I feel like to a certain extent, that's when you can just sort of start living and enjoying life.
Sure.
You know, that's a big part of the whole entrepreneurship thing is hopefully you can build up and have an exit, successful liquidity event and exit and do other things. That's what all entrepreneurs really want to do. Yeah. Just want to do other things.
Yeah.
But
What are some positives about being married to an entrepreneur?
You don't get bored.
This is where I'm gonna look terrible. What do you think?
No, you don't look. We'll edit out the pause.
Maybe it's stretched out your brain, and you now understand.
It's definitely. I think, so there's a lot of flexibility with it, weirdly enough, even though it's can be all consuming and all encompassing. You know, I'm very structured, and I come from a world where when you're at work, you're in this building from this time to this time. There's no leaving for lunch. There's no doing this. There's no that. And so on the other side of it, for family commitments or situations like that, it does allow a lot of flexibility. You know,
that's true. When we take, well, I mean, that's not a small thing because I mean, especially you being a single mom and you having to work and pulling 12-hour shifts 3 days back to back. I mean, like you basically have to plan so much in advance and
to be able to do that. Just get on 12 hours.
And you can't, the stress of not being able to allow for an emergency or not even really emergency, just those things that need to maybe get done, like when the kids need something at school and you there's a lot to that, but me being able to take care of something like that on the flip of a dime because I can move a meeting. Right.
I remember
that's a good point.
You went to get Bennett one day. You always got Bennett from school.
Yeah, and still.
Well, then you bring her to the office after you said she just got sick in your truck. I'm like, Eric, really? Can you take her home, please?
I had to get the work done, Sonya.
Put in your office.
But no, the flexibility that you have is a huge thing.
Yeah.
You may work a lot of hours, but at least you can leave if you have to.
You can take a meeting, when we're on vacation, you can take a meeting, at this point, or you can stop and take a meeting in your vehicle or
and the Zoom has made that a whole lot better.
Yeah, everybody can, it's natural to call a virtual meeting now, so it's good.
The question was, what's good, though, about being married to an entrepreneur?
I won't say it's weird. I mean, Eric knows me. I mean, I've still said that I would not want to be in this role. I don't have it in me to be in this role. I wouldn't. It's not something that I would wish on our daughters. Because and again, 100% from my my tunnel vision of what's risk versus benefit, and and just seeing that the weird thing is like in my job, for example, I absolutely sacrifice stuff. I sacrifice my, health, sleep, emotions, all of that. But then the part of it that I guess feels more justified is that I can consistently see the result of that. Okay, well, I did all of this, but here's the immediate return on that. Where in this situation,
It's a much longer term and not guaranteed and obscure. Yeah.
And so,
That's a very good point. Yeah.
you know, it's really,
Yeah.
and that's the thing too, especially as, you know, not being wired that way and being the spouse of someone that you love so much and seeing that, you're just like, I don't know that I would, you know, I would venture down that, you know, although it is absolutely worked out and I'm so happy and he's so deserving of all of it.
Sure.
But it's hard to see someone put themselves through that.
Especially being a caretaker. She's a caretaker.
Yeah.
And watching that, you know, I mean, because there's been a lot of times, I mean, like,
Ambiguity.
so this is a good, I mean, there's been a lot of, I know in my experience, like either A, not being able to go to sleep, B, not being able to sleep all the way through it, or C, waking up way early in the morning and getting after it, right? If you can't sleep, you might as well get some stuff done, right?
That's Sonya.
I used to get up, wake up in the middle of the night, go to the office at like 3:30,
I don't do that so
work
much.
till
I
about
sleep.
5:30.
Yeah.
So,
Go back home, shower up, take Soph to school.
so the spouse of that though, but how do you feel about it? Well,
She worries about it. I can go to sleep. No, Sonya.
He says he's having a hard time going to sleep. It takes him like 30 seconds.
yeah.
Instead of 10.
Hours. Yeah.
So what's good? I want to hear your answer to this question because I want to come back to something Tara said, but what's good about being married to an entrepreneur?
I can't answer that the same way she can. because
You don't have to answer it the
you
same
don't get
way.
bored. There's always something
Okay.
new that you're going to do, and you don't get stuck in a box.
Doesn't become mundane and
I mean, I remember telling him one time years ago when I was really chained to the desk. And it was early morning till late at night. I said, I feel like a caged animal that, you know.
Whoa, I can see it in your face. Reliving it.
But I did. I felt like I was going to start breaking the steel because I was just stuck in this, you know. And I remember we were at a Inc. 5,000 convention, and they were like, "Oh yeah, don't spend your days putting out fires." And Mark is on one side of me, and two other men in the company, and they're like, "Yeah, we shouldn't. We shouldn't." And man, I got up and walked out. I was like, yeah, I bet you don't.
Yeah.
But it just, that's
Talking
the
about
only
what's good.
No, that's the only time.
Turned it.
I can't, well, sorry. You
turned
it. Story. I know, I still have to get this one story in a clear. But no, that's it. I don't get bored.
Well, give us that's it. Okay, that's the only good thing. But no.
That's a big thing though. That's a big thing to her.
So of your attention.
Before I go back to something that Tara said, what's your story about Eric that you wanted to tell everybody, besides the fact he brought his sick kid to the office?
Yeah. Yeah, that was actually.
The point is, if I went in,
I didn't remember it.
if I went in Eric's office and I said, "Hey, I just got back to the doctor. They said I have the flu, but might as well come back to work because I've already been here for a week with it." You know, Eric immediately would be like, feel my forehead. Do I have the flu? So that guy brought a sick kid in the office.
Yeah.
Okay.
So he's a little paranoid about being
No, hypochondria.
Yeah.
That's another
So it's
sentiment of being a
that,
narcissist.
you know, he's married to you. I mean, what you do.
I
mean, I don't really go to her for much caregiving on that.
gonna get nada.
She doesn't. She's like, okay, you're fine.
No blood.
Yeah, you're good.
Yeah.
Here, take these.
Yeah.
So I want to come back to something you said, though, because I think it was really interesting. You said, like, I get the immediate gratification of seeing my patients or whatever doing better, happier, out of pain,
Well, and she works
whatever you do.
3 12-hour shifts and then she has off.
Right.
So it's very.
But I was just thinking about, you know, the employees in these companies that we work in, okay? They don't always see this vision.
No.
They don't always see, like, holy cow, you know, we do A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and we're all sitting there going, if we do A, B, C, D, E, F, G, man, it's going to be, you know, boom, way up here. They don't see that. All they see is whatever their problem is that they're dealing with right there, and they can't really visualize that. And I think it creates a lot of stress
Well, I think
for the people that work in these companies.
I think
Don't you?
Oh yeah, totally.
that mentality and the entrepreneurial mentality need to have a little bit of compassion for the other person because we can't all be alike.
No, we got to have them all. Yeah.
It takes
They're all playing their
types.
part in this grand.
I used to say I want I want the accounting person to be the slow driving,
Yeah.
I want the finance person to fly up the highway if nobody's there.
Right.
I don't want the person who's going to just stay at the speed limit regardless of the fact that it's Sunday morning at 6 a.m. and there's not a car on the road.
Yeah.
It's just different people for different things. And Mark and I used to say that if you need to go get her, go for a ride with them. And if they drive like mama, they're not going to be that good.
Or go to the airport, and if they get onto the moving walkway and stand, you're not hurting them.
You're out.
They're done.
You're out.
Boom.
You know what's funny is I think that's a good point, Mark, because from the team's perspective, I've struggled really hard in the beginning. I could literally in the beginning not understand why people did not care to the extent that I cared about.
It's not theirs.
Whatever.
Theirs.
Yeah.
And then I think that, and
They
then
don't see the vision.
right. And then, and then with Tara, the same thing. She can't see what I'm seeing, especially back in the,
Right.
I'm just but I think over time, I appreciate that removal because I can actually, get into that world a little bit better and it's a little bit relieving, but I think it's okay to your point, right? Different folks, and I'm just driven off of whatever I might be able to see, but it's not, it can't be the burden of other people.
And something y'all talked about before, if you do the open book management, and they always understand how this shifts it up, this shifts it down. And I used to tell Mark, if you're not honest with the employees, you're robbing them of trying to be part of the solution.
Sure.
And when if they feel like they're part of the solution, they're taking ownership of their job, like they have ownership in the company. So I think that transparency helps speak to the people who aren't wired the same way.
Yeah, I agree. It's essential. Okay, any last thoughts? We're running over time.
I have to tell the story.
Okay, tell the story.
Okay, so
Then I'll let Tara
Mark is
tell
out
the
of
last
town. My office is here. Mark's is here. Eric's is here. And this woman calls me and she says, hey, I'm calling for so-and-so, her boss, who's an engineer, and said, we wanted to sign up for this.
Principal Academy.
No,
it was a hot firm conference.
No, it wasn't hot firm.
The award conference. It was a big conference.
Oh my God.
It was the M&A thing, I think.
M&A conference.
And she goes, but I don't know if you know that I believe the phone number's wrong on the brochure.
Printed brochure. This is
Printed brochure, mailed out, printed. You can't pull anything back. And I said, really? And she goes, it's a sex line. And I said, oh my God, thank you. Oh my God, yes. And I put her through to somebody who took her order and everything. And I went in Eric's office. I was like, dial that number on your brochure.
I've been there for 2 weeks, by the way, or 2 to 3 weeks.
Yeah, you hadn't been there long.
Not very long.
Yeah.
That's pretty damn funny, though.
It is
No. So Eric is hysterical. He calls it, and he hangs it up. And I had closed the door, but it's all glass right there. And he goes, you gonna get fired? Yeah. And I was like, no, you're not. No, you're not.
I just remember one of the best.
telling anybody.
Eric, I don't know. I don't know if you were there. I'm sorry, honey.
I always tell him stuff after it's.
Yeah.
Yeah. We go a year after.
I don't know. I don't know if you were there when we did this, but we sent an email out that said insert subject line, insert here. That had like the highest open rate.
Yeah, ever.
Okay. It was a flat out mistake.
Yeah.
And
everybody opens.
everybody opens it. They're like, what the heck is it? All right. Any last thoughts you want to share, Tara?
Well, I think I was just thinking that hopefully this was helpful to show how different she and I are, and that, in the world of being married to an entrepreneur, that the spouse doesn't have to necessarily look one certain way, that it's, I think it's a lot about just compromise and communication and understanding.
And trust.
Yeah, absolutely. And because I think if you look at it from the outside looking in, then I don't think that you would put this pair together traditionally. But
it works. It works well.
Right.
Yeah, and same thing. Your guys' pairing works well, and so I think that's something too to kind of, just a good takeaway.
Good point. Good way to end up.
I'd just say a mutual respect, right? Kind of exact same thing.
There has to be some explaining.
Yeah.
Because the mental wiring is different.
Yeah.
So there has to be, you got to spend some time to help the other person understand, and vice versa. Like, it wasn't all you getting her to understand.
Sure.
You had to understand where she was coming from.
Yeah.
And what she needed.
You don't subscribe to Henry Ford II's philosophy. You know what he was famous for saying? There's actually a biography on him with this title: "Never complain and never explain."
No, I don't.
So that was what his motto was.
Hey, I really hope this is maybe helpful for somebody.
I do too.
Yeah. And I think it'd be helpful for the entrepreneur too to, like, hey man, or lady,
Have an honest discussion.
have an honest discussion and look at your partner as a partner. They're not one thing she always told me is like, and when things would get kind of hot, I'm not your enemy.
Exactly. You're both on the
Your
same
spouse
team.
is not your enemy.
Yes, absolutely.
And if you're an entrepreneur, you're driving forward, and you have enemies in the world, in the business world, that's not the same as your spouse.
I have less of those all the time.
I know.
That's the benefit of getting older. I mean, truly.
They die off.
Like all that die off. Yeah. I'm just thinking.
Or as much. Like, if somebody does it, you're like,
competitors. I talk with the competitors. It doesn't bother me. I like to make friends with them. I didn't used to.
No, I know.
I wanted to bury them.
Yes.
Okay.
But you start realizing, like, it's it's good to have competitors.
Yes.
B, a lot of times, like, you're really just more fearful than what a reality is. And it helps you to become better in your business too.
And maybe they'll buy you something.
Yeah. You'll buy potential. It's a potential M&A.
All right. Well, thanks everybody. And we're going to wrap it up. And this has been another episode of
Big Talk about small
business.
Business. Y'all ladies were supposed to.
business.
Okay. Well, thanks everybody. We'll see you next week.
Thanks for tuning into this episode of Big Talk about Small Business. If you have any questions or ideas for upcoming shows, be sure to head over to our website, www.bigtalkaboutsmallbusiness.com, and click on the Ask the Host button for the chance to have your questions answered on the show. Stay connected with us on LinkedIn at Big Talk About Small Business. And be sure to head over to our website to read articles, browse episodes, and ask questions about upcoming shows.